Welcome to Get After It with Nashy, brought to you by Ace Property Management and Sales.
We'll dive straight into it because I know you're a busy man. And first things first, congratulations. I don't know if you knew it, but I've got a copy.
Jesus, I mean, they only gave me one copy. I'm waiting for mine to come through, so fair play.
Is that right? Yeah, I got it. Now, what I don't tend to do is try to get cover to cover before I actually speak to somebody and interview somebody, because then I know everything that's gone on. So we'll dive into bits and pieces, and I know you'll want to give some teasers and all these sorts of things. But, mate, where to begin? It's been a long old journey. You've been going for quite some time, and you're still playing to this day. How's the book process been? Has it been a sort of, I don't know, has it been nice to go back through all the years, the highs, the lows, everything, and now have it in print?
No, it's been an unbelievable experience, actually. I think as rugby players, you keep quite a lot in check throughout your career, and you're right, I've been playing for like 15, 16 years professionally now, and you know, the game elicits every emotion possible in you as a player. I mean, good emotions, bad emotions, we all feel them. And certainly in professional sport, they're quite heightened. All those emotions, complete, elation, complete desperation, the pain, the jealousy, the resentment. There's so many good and bad emotions, but we all feel them, and it's all natural to do so. And ultimately, because you're playing a team sport, you keep a lot of those in check. Yeah. And you certainly dampen down quite a lot of them, because it is always about the team, and it always has been. And so you kind of go through your whole career, keeping a lot of your feelings to yourself. It's kind of a bit of a strange one. And that's not to say that in the book I've completely shouted everything out, but I've been quite honest about, some of the more difficult times, obviously some of the great times. Talked about the roller coaster of emotions that is a professional career. And yeah, it's been quite rewarding, actually, putting it all on paper and seeing it. I walked into a room last week and just saw a lot of copies on a table, and seeing it in print was quite special. But look, I'm very privileged to be able to have written a book and share my story. And I think above all else, I hope it inspires whoever reads, certainly because of my journey. I hope it inspires both, young rugby players who may have an eye on education or doing other things with their life, or maybe young, students who are keen on education, who want to, strive for a career in professional sport, not just rugby. And I hope, by sharing my story of how I kind of managed all those different career paths at once, well then, hopefully that can inspire someone or some people to, if that's what they want to go and do.
It's been so well documented, your sort of dual career, obviously being a medic and qualifying as a doctor, along with your such illustrious rugby career. But in the book, and the bits that I picked out, that sometimes spinning plates in that time the times that you would have to be at the hotel, reporting for duty, reporting for training, for camp, but you would be there hours in advance to get some studying, to get some time in the books, to get that done before actually rugby kicked in. And then that point that you sort of came to, you think, is this all worth it? I speak at length in 2013. I guess it's where my both careers came to a head, really. England came for the Grand Slam in Cardiff, if you remember, in 2013, in the last game of the tournament. And obviously we could never envisage the tournament going to that last game. We had a wonderful day that day in Cardiff, and the rest is history. One of the best days Cardiff has seen. I don't think Cardiff has seen a better day since then. One for the ages. But I actually sat my medical finals that week, in the Tuesday and Thursday of that week. So I missed a few training sessions. Immense amount of pressure. But because it was a combination of, I guess, 7 or 8 years worth of 7 or 8 years worth of university work. I mean, in medical finals, they examine you on everything you've learned over the course. But I knew it was coming, and I'm a bit of a deadline junkie, and so I kind of cruise, and then a month or two out from exams, I flip the switch and just go after it. And those 6 weeks or 8 weeks coincided with the whole Six Nations tournament. So you mentioned that in the book. That was really 2013. I mean, it was crazy. I was turning up at the Vale Hotel, probably 4:30, 5 in the morning, trying to get 3 hours work done before the lads would come in. Full training session, not just normal training. It's just Test rugby now, playing the Six Nations. I'd go home, do another couple of hours working and sleep and repeat. And, I do talk about one moment in the book where I almost did a U-turn out of the car park and lost it. It's probably the closest I've come to kind of giving up and being like, you know what, this is just ruthless. Because the risk was always that I'd fall between both.
Yeah.
It's that risk of letting your teammates down on, the biggest stage of all. Test rugby, you're a little bit tired, you make one poor read, you drop the ball, concentration levels, etc., and you're not peaking. And also the fact that you might not be contributing all the time that medical finals deserve in any failure exam. So that was the fear. But I guess my relationship with pressure, etc., when I was going on those both paths full steam ahead, I'd never felt more alive.
Now, the book, did you have a deadline for the book? And was that a sort of stage of, I better get this done? Or have you been good throughout your career that you've documented some things? Obviously, we can find it. You do a Google search on you or any well-established rugby player, we'll be able to find out a timeline. But have you ever sort of documented sort of certain things that have happened? And I am going to take you down the route at some point throughout this chat of some of the adventures you've been on while injured and all the nice things that you've got to do, which rugby's afforded you. But what is your sort of memory? How was it bringing back those memories?
My memory, I'll tell you what, my best memory bank per se, is my iCloud. I mean, when I sat down with Ross, the ghostwriter of the book, just thinking to myself, geez, how am I going to remember all these things? This is 15, 20, 25 years worth of a story to tell. And my most helpful possession really was iCloud on my phone. It's amazing. Go back to, I got photos from my school rugby trip back in 2002 to South Africa or Australia the year later. So it's it's been an amazing thing. And obviously you look at photos and that triggers certain memories, where you were, who you were with, etc. And it was my most valuable tool.
Any good photos on a night out with Freddie Funtop in Abu Dhabi? I bet that was
got a few. Look, I've always been one to say yes to everything. There's kind of I don't know if it's a strange trait of mine or whatever, but just maximizing opportunity. Like if I get a chance to go somewhere and I've got a free day or a free weekend, I'll never turn it down. Life is precious, life is short. I think as you grow a bit older and wiser, you come to appreciate that is the case. And I appreciate that quite early on. Some of my mates would laugh at me. I think I did a one night only trip to Stockholm once. Actually, Gothenburg. My mates used to go to Gothenburg, and there was a flight on the Saturday afternoon, but I had to be back in training on Monday morning, and I toyed with the idea for a long, long time. This isn't actually in the book. And I thought, you know what, I can't miss out. I think the kids call it FOMO now, but I was just like, nah, there's no way I can miss the lads' trip to Gothenburg this year. So 3-hour flight, one night only, flew back in the morning, happy days, back into training on the Monday, which is, outrageous when you think about it. But the stuff rugby has allowed me to do, to travel and experience different things, has been immense. I was very, it was probably a product of my upbringing and my parents, that it was always about maximising opportunity. And if there's ever a chance to do something new or try something different or go somewhere you haven't been or go and enjoy yourself somewhere with friends or colleagues, what have you, always say yes.
I enjoy the sort of thread throughout that you got some Red Bull adventures. That sounds like a pretty cool sponsorship. But tell us the stories about how you would get a bonus from Red Bull. And it was always a bit kind of, should I do this? Should I run down the tunnel? What we're going to do here?
I mean, I used to get ripped in half by the lads. An old friend of mine was working with the Red Bull sponsorship team at the time. And I was a young up and comer with Cardiff. I think I was 19. And Red Bull were looking to get into kind of various sports. I guess we've always associated Red Bull with extreme sports, and they were looking to maybe kind of test the water with mainstream sports. And so my sponsorship with them ran, for a decade really. I turned 30, and I remember the phone call off the athlete manager there was like, "Mate, you're too old now for us." They always targeted young, energetic sports people. 30, I was too old. I got the flick, unfortunately. And they've kind of stayed in mainstream sports. But yeah, look, initially it was about getting the product on screen. So whether that was warming up, a little can on the floor next to you, or you always knew that the cameras would be on you as you come up the tunnel. So, have the Red Bull ready, packed in the bag, come up the tunnel, take a sip, check it on, check the can on the floor, happy days. And, that's how you earned your bonus back then. I mean, as I said, the lads absolutely ripped me apart for it, but that was the way it was. And it's just an amazing, amazing brand to be associated with. I mean, like I've been very fortunate to travel the world with various Grand Prix. I've been to Monza and Abu Dhabi, been to Monaco probably 5 or 6 times for the Grand Prix there. Silverstone as well. Just absolutely brilliant. And great people. I'm still good friends with those guys who worked with Red Bull at the time, and certainly Red Bull Racing. It's a wonderful, wonderful brand to be associated with. Probably one of the best things that happened to me outside the game, really, with the experiences I've had with them. And
even getting up in fighter planes, was that with Red Bull?
Yeah, we filmed a cinema advert once. Myself, George North, and Owen Farrell. They flew us out to Salzburg. I mean, the Red Bull's head offices are in a couple of hangars just on the corner of Salzburg Airport. Just an immense kind of two of these airport hangars, like domes that have been transformed into office space / museum space. I mean, they've got all the Red Bull cars there, a couple of helicopters, etc., all branded Red Bull, and it was a kind of test you to your limits theme. And so, they took George North for a training session at the FC Salzburg, which is I think they call it Salzburg Red Bulls. It's a full Red Bull branded stadium. And he thinks he's doing a training session there, and then the next minute this stunt helicopter lands on the pitch, picks him up, and takes him over the nearby forest, doing kind of loops and flips, etc., in a helicopter.
Awesome.
Owen Farrell had to take goal kicks over the posts with like different pressures. So they got a NASCAR to do donuts around him whilst he's kicking, and then got literally a black like military helicopter to fly just above his head as he's taking a goal kick. Sort of these sort of things. Can he deal with the pressure, etc. Yeah. And then literally, I was like, right, kind of guessing what I was going to do. And then they wheeled this Alpha jet, like German fighter jet, around the corner. I said, right, Jamie, you're going up in that. Which was just like, as an experience, 700 mile an hour or so over the Austrian Alps. And again, I speak about it in the book, kind of halfway through, we're going, and the pilot's like, right, Jamie, controls between your legs, you ready? Takes his hands off, and I'm in control of this jet for like 5-10 seconds. I think I did one loop. It's my own. It was unbelievable, and I came down and I was ill for about 30 minutes. Seriously ill. I landed and I was obviously had this amazing buzz and like elation.
Yeah.
And then the worst hangover times 10 kicked in. Absolutely brutal. I had to lie completely still for about half hour.
You talk in the book about sort of the amazing things that you've done, but you are very honest as well that, and you say that people maybe resent the things and the opportunities that you found and the chances that you took in saying yes to a lot of things. You're very honest about that in the book, in the way maybe Mr. Perfect and all that, and it's all in air quotes in the book. But how did you deal with that? And I know you live your life and you go for it, but it must be hard when even close teammates or somebody you might overhear something, or it's not as comfortable when you turn up on Monday having been in Monaco or something and everyone else has done something not as extravagant. What was that like, being in the changing rooms when you knew that was maybe going on?
Yeah, difficult. It's a very good question. And I, probably on reflection, I didn't quite know how to deal with that. at the time. I mean, I reflect on it now, and it's all these things that come as part of the game. For me, I just had to make sure I concentrated on rugby first and foremost. I think it's easy to go off and do that other stuff. If it affects your game, well, then it's a problem. But if you can marry the two and enjoy those things that come with the game, well, then I'd encourage it all day long in any individual. It kind of frustrated me. Eddie Jones came out this week speaking about Marcus Smith and comparing him with Raducanu. I mean, that breaks me. I read that and I'm like, I think that is something that you comment on after it's happened. If someone like Marcus goes and plays brilliantly and then he gets a drop in form because he's starting to do all these other different things, well, then great. I think it's time to comment, but never beforehand. I know he's trying to fire a warning shot, but, I think the game, yes, it requires a level of professionalism, but also, people will be amazed how much free time you have as professional rugby players. It's to think it's a full-time job is a lie, really. It's not. And, as I said, I always live my life trying to maximize everything. I mean, I'd be an absolute fool to turn down stuff like that. In fact, I'd go and seek it. I'd go and seek adventure and seek opportunity. But you're right, it was difficult. And you hear the comments of your teammates, etc., and what have you, maybe because they hadn't done it, or, check out this guy doing all these different things. At the time, I did struggle with it. And I used it to drive me, I guess. And the fact those comments were coming in my ear, I kind of used it to drive me. Look, I'm going to prove you wrong and make sure I keep performing on the pitch. Yeah. And I did that. I managed to do that throughout the course of my career. Yes, there was a blip and I didn't play too well, but I like to think that I kept my standards of playing pretty high.
Your contact list is pretty impressive. Prince Albert of Monaco to the Manic Street Preachers to you've had some incredible experiences. What's a highlight out of the off-field events? The things that you've done in your life you thought, sheesh, didn't see that coming. How did I get that opportunity?
It's probably the Manic Street Preachers gigs have been amazing. I'm fortunate to do it twice, in Melbourne in 2013 on the Lions and at the Rugby World Cup in 2019 in Tokyo. Same song twice. I mean, I approached both very differently. I was very kind of humble in 2013, very relaxed, really nervous, etc. And then 2019, I went full rock star mode. I was about 10 points deep, I think. Came on stage and absolutely showing off. It's no humility in rock and roll, I guess. It was amazing experiences. But he's a great man, James Bradfield. He actually introduced himself to me when I was out with an ACL injury. I was sat with my mates in a greasy spoon cafe in Cardiff one Sunday morning after a big night out. And he walked over. It was after we won the Grand Slam. And the following game, I was actually playing up in Scotland. I think it was Glasgow away at the old ground there, and did my ACL. Had an op the following week. And he just came up. He said, "Don't stand up. Just want to say, brilliant season. Congrats on the Grand Slam. You've done us all proud." And it was James Bradfield, right? So me and my mate, I sat there just like in awe of this guy. And it turned out the recording studios were opposite the cafe, and we kept in touch, etc. And fate had it, they were playing the night before the test in 2013, and he invited me to play a song with him on stage after he found out I got injured for those first two tests. And the second test was in Melbourne, and so there I was on stage with the Manics, played one song. It only lasted about 4 minutes, and but as a high, as a buzz, it's just amazing. Like very different to playing rugby and being in a 70 or 80,000 seat stadium. Like, the Manics, that experience, albeit in front of only 3,000 or 4,000 people, was just really cool.
It's such a incredible story, your Lions career, and I love the way you describe it about when you first had it read out. And I love how the Lions don't find out any differently to us, the fans. You were sitting in your car with your pal, listening to the radio. There's your name. He buys you an ice cream, and right, lads, get round to the house for the house party. What a time! But can you just for the sake of the podcast, and everyone's got to read the book and get it all directly from you. But being a Lion, what cap 700, cap 757, I think.
Yep.
It's with you forever. and obviously 2009 man of the series, 2013 the last time you put the strip on, scoring the try. Give us just a sort of what the Lions means to you, those two experiences, the two tours, how you actually got on the pitch with your hamstring injuries in that last test. It's so, there's so much that you did for the Lions and so much to tell. If you can kind of just chuck a bit at us, it's a story we all want to hear.
Yeah, so the Lions, look, I'm a bit of a rugby romantic traditionalist, if you put it that way. I love the Barbarians and the varsity match, and we're fortunate to play for both of those teams, with Cambridge as well. Like the old school element to me and connecting with history is everything. When you walk into rugby clubs and see the teams of 40, 50, 60 years ago and connect with, members of the team from the past, whether you see old players at rugby grounds, they're there with their kids who now play. For me, that is the foundation of our sport. And so when you think about the Lions, look, I grew up watching the 97 side. I was a bit older come 2001 in Australia, but still obviously was engrossed in the series. 05, I was 18. And that kind of humiliation to the All Blacks at 3-0 series in New Zealand. And there was always, I guess, a part of me which just thought to myself, all right, if you are playing for your country well enough in a Lions year, you've got a shot. You've got a shot. There's 4 teams that go into the Lions. And I was very fortunate. I won my first cap in 2008. And I had a good season, good Six Nations in 09. I know Ireland, O'Gara dropped goal. They won the Slam in Cardiff in 09. But I was playing well and playing in a good team. So first and foremost, talk about timing and where you're at in your career. I was young, I was 22, I was having a good season, playing in a good side, not just at international level, but domestically as well. And so, I remember it like it was yesterday, 21st of April, 09, got in my mate's car. And as you rightly said, as players, you never found out before anyone else. You just waited for it. We went and listened to Radio 5 Live down, sat in Penarth Pier with my mate. And I was nervous because there was a bit of chat around maybe going on the tour, a bit of press around it. My mates were messaging me, etc. So no smoke without fire, etc. And just having a name read out was just special. It's such a unique experience and emotion. I had a massive night that night, and I was very, very conscious to invite my PE teachers. I talk about the book about the most influential coaches and people in my career. I put my sports teachers at the top of the list. 3, we kind of, Glance High School, where I went to school, was a bit of a rugby academy, and those 3 were hugely influential at a time in my life when, like most people, you're going through the most change through adolescence. So they came, I made sure they were there, had a right old knees up, it was brilliant. And then, next minute, you're in Pennyhill Park, training with the lads, and find yourself in South Africa. And again, look back over all the factors. Some people don't go well in their first Lions shirt. Some people don't get the chance to impress or whatever. I was very lucky. I was playing outside Stephen Jones, Mike Phillips, inside someone like Brian O'Driscoll.
Yeah.
And the majority of times I wore the red of the Lions. I mean, anyone could play well in between players like that. I just had to concentrate on what I did best and my super strength. And, it was such an amazing rugby experience. It was I think, last of the old school tours before kind of social media really ramped up and, kicked in. There was still kind of an old school feel about it. So some wonderful characters on that tour. I've mentioned a few of them already, but, Adam Martin Williams, Paul O'Connell, these sorts of icons of the game, really. And there I am, fresh-faced 22-year-old. And, I speak in the book, quite honestly about the contrast between 09 and 2013. I've never experienced a change room like 09 at Loftus. That second test has its moment in history as probably the most brutal test match that's been played. Just, it's a privilege to be a part of it, albeit we lost. And then the contrast then in Sydney 3 years later, the lads win the series. And yeah, I was lucky to score a try at the end of that game, but very kind of difficult week that I speak about, this moral dilemma around being injured. And when he's selected to play, do you risk do you risk the fact that you might break down after 5 minutes, or are you a bit more selfish and go, right, this is potentially the biggest game of my career, I've got to go for it here. I suffered a grade 2 hamstring injury the week before the first test, played the Waratahs, brutal experience. And yeah, that last week, Gats picked me on the Thursday. I remember waking up match day in quite a lot of pain on my hamstring, just thinking, geez, am I doing the right thing here?
Yeah.
It was a horrible position to be in. Very fortunate it turned out the way it did. But, it could have turned out the other way. I guess you've only got your gut feeling to go with on those occasions. But yeah, just an amazing. The Lions for me embodies everything that's great about our game, and long may it continue. I hope it goes from strength to strength.
I was reading in the book, obviously, the scenario with obviously O'Driscoll getting dropped, and it was Jonathan Davis that took the sort of the social media backlash and everything. But you were so tight with him, and you spoke to him. But I couldn't believe what you write about what people were sending him about need to break his legs, and I'll find him as soon as I get to Australia. He's put O'Driscoll out of the team. But you very honestly in the book step up and say, well, it was me coming back in. That sort of.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, John took all the flack because he was wearing 13. But, he played in the first 2 tests, so it was. I kind of snuck in there under the radar because I was a 12 and I was wearing a different jersey number. The social media fallout from that was ridiculous, to be honest. But you could kind of understand it. Brian, in his last ever potential Lions test match, doesn't get picked. And it's a theme that runs throughout the book, relationship with Warren Gatland and what he was like as a bloke and person. There's no room for sentiment with Warren. Absolutely none whatsoever. I mean, the end of my Wales career is testament to that. I experienced that firsthand. He did not care how many caps he had, how experienced you were, how much of an icon you were in the game. He picked the best team to win at the weekend, regardless of whether he was coaching club level, international level, or for the British Lions. And that was his strength. He saw past any sentiment. Some may call that cold, but he was a winner. All he cared about was picking a team to do the job on the weekend. And, unfortunately for Brian, he found himself the victim of circumstance, I guess. 3 doesn't go into 2. I think, Warren backed us lads because we'd had success with Wales, certainly 2 previous seasons with Six Nations. I was back fit, and John had played relatively well in the first 2 tests. And I think Brian, by his own admissions, hadn't in those tour games. So, look, it was an amazing moment. I don't think any of us expected the media fallout from that. Certainly not Brian, but John, it was funny, mate. It was funny few days with John, actually. Just, some of the stuff he was reading on his timeline was berserk. But that's what the sport's about. It's about opinion, isn't it? It's great that we can actually hear those opinions, as brutal as they are sometimes. That's what the sport is founded on.
Absolutely. And obviously the last, or your sort of serious involvement in that game was from start to when you left the pitch. But when you got that crash ball, as you say in the book, it's a line you've run a million times, but it just opened up for you and the hamstrings held out.
It's just ridiculous. Like when I think about it, I mean, the amount of times I've run that line in training and games, and you're hoping for half a shoulder. You're hoping for, you check numbers at the line and you're hoping just a defender maybe gets his read wrong by half a second. And you can get half a shoulder, advantage line, get the ball back, quick ball, lads on the front foot. Or you turn a defender, they play out the back here and you create space for others to whip. And very rarely do you line break off it, let alone in a deciding Lions test match with 80 or 90,000 people watching, millions around the world. So it was just a kind of fate, really, a moment of fate. Like, my last action in a Lions jersey. Unfortunately, I didn't tour in 2017, but it was just kind of, game is more or less won. More 65 minutes, 67 minutes, I think it was, and you pick that line and it opens. The gate just opens for you and you score. And I talk in the book about it, everything just going silent. As much as there were probably 80, 90,000 people roaring, it just felt like I'd gone underwater. like school, I stood up and I was just numb. It was just completely like silent for about 2 seconds, and then the sounds kind of starts kicking in. It gives me goosebumps to this day thinking about it. It's such a special moment in my career, and as I said, kind of fateful really that running that line and what I prided my game on best. Those sorts of like angles of running came to fruition at the very, very pinnacle of the game.
Now that game, it led to Stuart Hogg and his budgie smugglers. So I take it that was a bit of an epic night. What are your memories of Hoggy on that tour and just playing against Scotland over the years? You got any memories of Murrayfield or good games down in your neck of the woods?
Yeah, he's a top lad. Budgie smugglers. I mean, the next day was even more fun. I think we found ourselves on Bondi Beach. Can't remember the name of the bar. On a bit of an all-dayer. He was in good spirits. I remember Hoggy playing 10 on that tour. We played the combined countryside, and he'd been picked at 10, probably to rest kind of Johnny and Faz, who were our 10s on that tour. And he carved up. I mean, the guy's pace and ability is pretty special. But myself and Dricko played outside Stu, and Hoggy had a fine game. My favourite memory of Hoggy was his debut. I'm pretty sure it was his debut, one of his first caps. He came off the bench, and I remember a kick chase. We kicked long. There's about 5 minutes left in the game, and I kind of pride myself on my defensive ability. It was certainly myself and John Davis at the peak of our powers around that time. Kind of big kick chase, and we're both chasing, and the ball's gone to this young lad. And he's carrying the ball back, and he just kind of bang, bang, steps off right, steps off left, splits us completely in half, has made the line break. We're both grasping thin air and just thinking, who is this guy? Just complete pace, agility that I'd not really experienced before. It was a young Stuart Hogg, and he's gone on to do pretty well in the game. I mean, certainly one of the talisman for Scotland at the minute, and I hope for the short to medium term, at least for Scotland. I know he's getting on a bit now. Certainly not in my terms, getting on a bit, but he's done brilliant things for Scotland. He's a wonderful player and a top bloke.
Yeah, absolutely. Here. You touched on your Welsh career or your Wales career, and obviously you write about it in the book. It's talked about in right at the start, and then you get into it more detail throughout. It's a tough one. 97 caps, Harlequins, chats with teammates, all these sorts of things. Do you want to delve into that? Obviously, people will get the full story in the book, but give us a
yeah, they will. Look, it's a very difficult finish. Very difficult finish. And I think as all sports people, you want to finish on your terms. And certainly when you play a decade for your country and finish like that, certainly when I reflect, it was very, very difficult. At least for 18 months, 2 years, I really struggled. I'd given everything. I played 9 years consecutively in the Six Nations. Kind of 45 games on a trot. Was kind of involved in that team for so long. It kind of feels like a club. The international side when you're fully engrossed in it. And then bang, the club versus country issue, which I've never really spoken about. I've never spoken about publicly. I've written about it in the book, obviously. But yeah, I mean, it's good to get that out there because it's something I'd held back and not really wanted to upset various parties. But it was brutal, absolutely brutal. I cried my way down the M4 back to Quins. They basically held me over a barrel and threatened me with my job. It was very, very kind of tough way, and I never got picked for Wales again. And as I said, I really struggled with it for about a year or two. As much as I was very grateful for playing 94 times for Wales, and it never made it any easier. You play one time or 94 times. To finish like that was very, very challenging. I think kind of hit home to me how difficult it is for sports people. Very, very few get to finish on their terms. And I've come to appreciate that a bit more after what happened to me in 2017. But it was very tough, and I'm honest about that. I think it's good to share that story, and that's not me looking for any sort of sympathy. As I said, I'm very grateful for the Test career I had, but for it to finish like that was very, very difficult.
Yeah, and your Wales career, obviously, there's a couple of things throughout the book that Alwyn Jones versus Ryan Jones in a pit in a Polish training camp. Give us a bit of background on that.
That was very funny, mate. Poland, geez, I mean, it was some of the toughest training I've ever done. Pre-2011 World Cup, 2012 Six Nations, we were in Gdansk. I think we were in Spala for the first few, and it was tough. It was very tough. We I think as a side, Warren had this idea around. Yes, we were skillful players. Yes, we were natural rugby players, but to win the World Cup, we had to be the fittest team there. And what did that require? I think they saw an opportunity with cryotherapy, the science around cryotherapy, and kind of overtraining for 2 weeks, cramming a lot of training in to prepare the lads. There was running, there was late evening weights, there was 5 cryotherapy sessions a day, a lot of swimming, skills sessions. You've mentioned the wrestling sessions in the sand pits. It had everything. And I guess when I do reflect on the trophies I won with Wales early in the early in the tens, it comes as no surprise that those periods are the hardest I've trained as a rugby player. I think as a group, they were some of the hardest we trained in preparation for those tournaments, and we won, or we did well. 2012, 13, semi-final of the World Cup in 2011, and we were really, really good playing group. It was a privilege to be a part of that group.
Yeah, and you talk about the book when Warburton was handed the captaincy as a young man, but sort of a different mindset, a different outlook on alcohol, a different outlook on maybe training. Give us a bit of background on that when Warburton was handed and how that was received throughout the squad.
Yeah, it's fascinating. Look, I don't think anyone really expected it. Certainly as, I'm not saying I was a senior player there. I was probably 26, 27, halfway through my test career. Maybe 20, 30 caps under my belt, but there were still experienced players in the squad. Martin Williams, Gethin Jenkins, these sorts of players. Sorry, Martin Williams was long gone by then, but certainly someone like Gethin, Ryan had been captain. But Warren, I think what Warren saw in Sam was a young man. There was so much focus and determination and professionalism that no one could not respect. If you put someone like that as captain, I think all of a sudden, a lot of people around him, certainly people like myself, you see the example he set and how he delivered on the pitch. Maybe it changes one or two of your habits and bad habits. Even if you have that reaction in 50% of your squad, well, then it's a good decision to make someone like that captain. I think he was an unbelievable player, great guy, but a hugely diligent professional. And I think Warren saw this new era under him as a breath of fresh air for the squad. And, quite a few people, raised a few eyebrows when it was initially announced, certainly in the squad. But as the years went by, you could understand why Warren made that decision, and he grew into a brilliant captain for Wales. Did TV with Sam, the last couple of weekends. He's still a great guy, understands the game very, very well, and is enjoying his new role, doing his media work.
Yeah, now another guy that was probably an influence in the squad was Andy Powell. You talk about it in the book, and everyone knows his story. But the aftermath, and you woke up that morning with a golf cart, your phone was blown up. You just won. Was it the Grand Slam, I think? And
we just beaten Scotland. Sorry, mate. That's at the stadium. It was that famous. Yeah, it was that famous result against Scotland. Just the most outrageous last 3 minutes to a Test match I think the Six Nations has ever seen. Very, very kind of emphatic victory, just nuts, berserk finish, gut wrenching for Scotland, certainly heartbreaking, but for Wales, just an amazing win. And so we went out that night, and what happened. I just remember my then ex-girlfriend sat having lunch at this pub in the country, and my phone is going buzzing in my pocket, and I'm just thinking, shit, what did I do last night? Just a little bit, it's a little bit concerned. So I excused myself, and it was literally all the lads just going, "Shit, boys, you've seen what happened. Have you seen what happened?" And look, it's it's difficult to kind of hate on Andy for what happened there. He's a great guy. He just made a poor decision when he was extremely drunk after celebrating a famous victory. Look, it was irresponsible. It is what it is, but certainly gone down in rugby folklore, isn't it?
It certainly has. Now, Jamie, just on the medical side of things, and there's so much around concussion at the moment. There's so much around dementia. And Carl Heyman this week, obviously, there's been news reports. You'll have your own thoughts and your own views with your medical background, but does that worry you? I mean, you've had some pretty serious head knocks. You've had you've had fractured skull and the Sterling Mortlock head knock. What are your thoughts and views around what's going on at the moment with dementia and concussion?
Yeah, first of all, it's very sad, isn't it? I think someone like Carl Heyman coming out in public speaking about massive respect for actually being open about his problems. As for, I say the same about all the players who are coming out and speaking about it. I think it's important. I think it's a very important topic in the game, and one that needs a hell of a lot more resource and investment into establishing the link. I think with my scientific hat on, I do think it can be quite irresponsible sometimes to assume that link and to assume causation, because there are lots of rugby players who don't have dementia symptoms, who have played the game for a long time and probably suffered a similar amount of head knocks. And so what we need to do is, with evidence-based research, establish that causation link. That's what we're all trying to achieve. And I struggle to see how that can be achieved until the first cohort of professional rugby players pass and donate their brains, and we can section their brains and compare with normal population to say for sure that, rugby population under the microscope, brains compared to normal population, show clear signs of CTE, because we haven't been able to establish that yet. I mean that's a deeper discussion. But does it worry me? Yes. I've taken quite a lot of head knocks. Who knows how I'll be in 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, what have you. I'm not quite sure. I was never really a young player who was aware of any risks and long-term risks. But I think the game is doing a great job in educating with the information that we have. Let's remember, the information we have is very, very limited.
Yeah.
The sport has only been professional for 25 years. And so it needs a lot more work. It's very topical. I know it's very sensitive because, it's affected a lot of players' lives. And it's very difficult when you read those stories and when you do kind of second guess, is this going to be me in 5 years, 10 years?
Yeah.
But as I said, I think the game is doing well to change its laws to protect players. But I also think we're a long way yet from one, establishing that causation piece, and two, getting right to the bottom of the long-term effects of playing professional rugby and head impacts on the brain.
Yeah, but I mean, we've seen changes. Obviously, you talk about it in that game, your last game for the Lions, is that players hide injury. They don't want to not play. They don't want to come off. The HIA now, everything's so crucial. If there's a big head knock, there's been big advances. So yeah, absolutely, let's keep the research going. Guys like yourself who have been there and have got the medical background, what you can probably give to the research is invaluable.
Well, that's the thing. It's medicine that works. It's all evidence based, and so everything that happens in medicine is based on solid research evidence. And so, as we move forward with the concussion debate and early onset dementia, etc., the link has to be established in evidence. It has to be established in evidence, and there's no way me being in denial here. But if a rugby player is suffering symptoms from early onset dementia, rephrase that. If a person is suffering early onset dementia symptoms and he or she played rugby, well, I think I think it's instinct then to assume that it was rugby that's caused it. And that's the obvious assumption. But I think in science, you can't do that. And it's dangerous to do that. And establishing that link lies at the heart of this whole debate. And I hope World Rugby invest more research is done. I know there is more research being done into establishing that link. And it's important. It's crucial, really.
Yeah. Now I saw you were at the game, the South Africa game at the weekend. Do you think Liam Williams would have made it to the corner if the pitch invader hadn't come on?
No, I think he wasn't going to score anyway. The pass was behind him, wasn't it? I don't think it affected that. Yeah, maybe. But I look at shambles. How that guy made it onto the pitch, but I think more importantly, why you would want to get on the pitch. It's irresponsible, poor behaviour, and I'm glad to see that he's been banned from the stadium for life. There's no couple of strikes approach to that sort of thing.
Yeah,
I think it's dangerous. I really do think it's dangerous. Imagine Eben Etzebeth in full flight and he goes on the pitch and ends up in his path. I mean, someone's getting hurt there, whether that's fan or player. It is downright dangerous. So, yeah, it's irresponsible, and I'm glad to see it's been dealt with.
Do you remember years ago when the rather fat South African fan ran on the pitch and grabbed the ref, and Richie McCaw came off the side of the ruck, and the South African was AJ Venter? Do you remember that one?
Vaguely. I think I've seen a clip of it.
Well, I interviewed AJ Venter last week, and because I saw this happening, I saw that guy was going on standing in the anthems and all this, and then I remembered that guy all those years ago, and AJ Venter says, yeah, me and Richie McCaw gave the guy a doing at the bottom of the ruck. He came up with a bloody nose. His face was in pieces. So yeah, if some random gets hit by Eben Etzebeth or, Mario Toji running full tilt, it's going to be lights out for the pitch invader.
Well, it's difficult, isn't it? It's difficult. I was good to see. It was good to see the players refrain from filling the bloke in. Yeah, not that I condone that behaviour, but God, for you lads must have been tempted.
Yeah, absolutely. Now you just, I won't keep you too much longer, but it's all dad life now. How's things now? The wee man's there. I've seen him holding the book. I've seen him on your social profiles and things. How's dad life treating you?
Yeah, amazing. It's just such a unique experience. I mean, it's tiring. He's not sleeping well at the minute, so that has its challenges. Certainly as an elite athlete, whether I'm an elite athlete anymore, but certainly as an athlete, it's difficult. And I've certainly in the last 8 months, I've gathered a newfound respect for rugby playing dads who kind of done it at the peak of their careers. I mean, how on earth lads have done that is beyond me. But yeah, amazing. It does put things in perspective. I know it's cliche, but look, I just hope he can watch me play before I hang up my boots. That'd be nice. Have a few photos pitch side with him. That'd be pretty cool. And yeah, I just hope one day I don't really care if he plays rugby, but I hope that he finds love in competitive sport, because I think the values of competitive sport and what it teaches you, certainly teaches young people, that I think are absolutely brilliant. And we're in the business of making good people as well as good rugby players. And as I said, the experience I've had through rugby and the values we live and breathe brilliant, and I hope my lad can experience that one day. Yeah,
good on you. No, I saw, and I forgot to say at the start, I saw it was your birthday yesterday, and you were on the FaceTime with Viss and James Horwell, who have both been on the podcast.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah, they've both been on. I was struggling for guests that week.
Fair. No, we're good mates from Harlequins days. It's, and again, that's one of the things I love about the game. I think when I reflect, as much as you remember the wins, losses, etc., it's all about the journey and relationships. The game is founded on your relationships with fellow players, coaches, fans, etc. And they're two close friends from my Harlequins days that we speak every other day. Certainly no less than every other week. So, no more than every other week. So it's it's awesome. And I've been fortunate to play alongside and be coached by some brilliant people who I hope, in the next year, next 10 years, next 30 years, that I'll bump into a bar somewhere and we can share a pint and reminisce.
Yeah, that's it. Now you'll have some stories to tell around the table in a bar. But Jamie, congratulations with your book. It's here, I think, out on the 11th of November.
Yeah, Thursday the 11th. Yeah. So yeah, I hope people enjoy the read.
Yep, good on you. I'm enjoying it so far, and I'm going to get stuck right into it now. But thanks for coming on. I really appreciate it. Good luck with Daddy Daycare and the rest of the season.
Top man. Cheers, mate.